Are you doing a third season? Have you shot a third season, or are you doing it now?
We haven't shot a third season. So confidentially,
Are you allowed?
no, maybe I shouldn't.
Oh no, maybe. It's no.
So anyway, let me tell you what's going on.
Pedro, it's a great pleasure to be speaking to you today.
It's an incredible pleasure to be speaking to you.
I just came directly from our set on the Kenobi series, and I'm working with so many of your crew from The Mandalorian. In fact, Deborah Chow is directing all of our series, and I know she's directed a couple of episodes of the first season. And it's just, I don't know, I'm having such an amazing time down there with that incredible technology and the volume and the not being in front of too much green screen and blue screen.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
It's spectacular.
You would think that you would have to really invent all of it in your mind, and more than any set I've ever been on, it's there.
Yeah.
Meticulously created in the production design. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's like being on an amusement park ride.
Having done loads of it in the first, when I did the first 3 films in the late 90s and into the 2000s, by the time we did episode 2 and 3, we were literally 90% of the scenes were just on green sets with green floors, green walls, or a blue set with blue sides and blue walls. And we're doing stuff on there that you just, that to the eye is like you're transported.
It's unbelievable to me to think that it be such a different experience, but with the same character.
Yeah.
That you were doing before, and then coming in and doing it with all this new technology.
It reminds me of old Hollywood. It's like the beginning of Hollywood. I know it's almost like when you imagine Hollywood when they had 3-sided sets all in a row and a bunch of guys with the wind-up cameras, and you would just go from one stage, if you like, to the other, one background to the other. Well, we're doing sort of the same thing, except it's just the background changes instead of the stage thing, you know? First of all, you can invent stuff, interiors or exteriors, that don't exist in the real world and put us into that environment, which is cool.
Yeah.
And also, you don't have to, you don't have to fly. I mean, traveling's been great for the first 30 years of my career, but now I just want to stay at home, you know? I just want to drive to work and drive home from work. I want a proper job. Oh my God.
It's so immersive, and I don't know. I love that you're experiencing it. I'm going to jump out of Star Wars for just a second because I have to tell you. In '96, I did this summer trip. I lived in Spain. And I remember when I finally came home, my friends picked me up from the airport. I flew back to New York. And the first thing that they said to me was, "You have to see Trainspotting." Literally the very, very first thing. And that began my absorption of your entire career. So I know we jumped right into Star Wars, but I've got to tell you you've got to understand at least a little bit what an honor it is to be speaking to you like this.
Oh, well, that's nice. Thank you very much. That's very kind.
28 to 45, average household income $38,000, enjoys the finer things, loves a night out, but adores a night at home. The fragrance to beat. How will we do it?
No.
All right, no to what, the bottle?
Okay, sure. We have lots of options. Hold on.
No.
Okay.
No.
Olsen, you didn't even look at that one.
No. 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 No.
Austin, can I have a word?
No.
So did you know a lot about Halston before taking the job? Is that why you did it? How did that come about?
No, I was between jobs, or I didn't know what was next or something, and I had like one of those afternoons where your agent my agent set up a few meetings that I very rarely go to the actual agency, but I went there. They put me in a room, and I met like 3 directors, one after the other, who were all trying to raise funds for different projects, and it was just an interesting afternoon. But the first person through the door was Dan Minahan, who directed the whole series of Halston. And he started talking about the most famous person I'd never known. First of all, I just feel like I've been doing this long enough now, and I've had enough experiences of doing this job where I'm not growing with the director, where it's just getting by, doing the work, and that's fine. But I'm just sort of tired of that now, and I only want to work with people where I'm going to be taken somewhere creatively or pulled or in one direction or another. And so I'm always looking for those people. And the second I started talking with Dan, I felt like he was somebody that would do that with me. Like I thought, I'm going to get something out of this relationship that I felt like I trusted him already.
So it sort of started with the relationship to the director, and then the material and the subject matter came.
Yeah. And I wasn't wrong. You know, my instincts about him were right. Like he led me, but he also let me go. And I don't know, there was something beautiful about working with him.
There's something that I love so much about the show, that the kind of the way that it focuses on collaboration, and almost like the accident and the instinct that he has as an artist, or the instinct that he has about people and other people's talent and vision, and combines that with his own, and how so many of these things that became, I guess, iconic in the history of fashion and industry happened kind of by accident, and was wondering how much you find that I don't know, like you say, the people that you work with started with like basically how you felt about Dan Minahan, and then from there came everything else and this performance.
Well, it was just lucky. I was lucky that I had a long period with it before we got on set. It was a year or two, because after meeting Dan and learning a bit about Halston, I then left that meeting and read as much about him as I could, and realized I really wanted to play him. And then I became on as a producer, and we started shopping it around. There was a different writer at that point. Shar White was the writer at that point. So me, Dan, Shar, and Christine Vachon, who I worked with on Velvet Goldmine years and years ago, the four of us started pitching it around town. And I've never really I've done that for my motorbike trips, but I've never done that for a piece of work like this. And it's a tough, I don't know if you've ever done that, but it's a tough crowd.
No, I haven't. That's such a surprise to hear, because the way that I guess the presumption that I made in watching it and in enjoying it was that it was just like given to you like this gift of a role, these rich sort of scripts and characters, and especially, you know, the central character Halston, that it was just something that you couldn't say no to, and now it makes even more sense because of how well it works, that it was sort of like you were so much a part of piecing it all together.
Well, I was a part of it, in that we went round and we couldn't get anyone to pick it up, but just nobody was interested. It was, I guess, nobody gets killed in it. There's no bloodshed. There's no, I don't know. It was a story of
There's so much bloodshed.
No, I know, emotional bloodshed. But it's a story of a man's life, and I don't know. But people sometimes don't. Anyway, they clearly didn't. Nobody picked it up, and it was only Christine Vachon months later, after the phone went very quiet, and I just assumed it had gone. I thought, oh well, we gave it a go, and nobody's picked it up. And nobody phones you saying, in my experience, saying it's dead, it's not happening. It just goes very quiet. And then and then she met Ryan Murphy, and she was asking what he was doing. And she mentioned the Halston project, and he said, well, we've got to do it. I mean, we've just got to do it. So I think he then went to Netflix, where he has his deal, and he just said, I'm doing Halston, and that's it. I don't think he really asked them, but just told them, you know.
Well, I guess that's part of my presumption, is that it may have been like, you know, Ryan Murphy knowing exactly what he wanted, and, you know, getting the director, and I'm doing it with Ewan.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just exciting for me to hear that it doesn't necessarily work out the way that you would expect. As an actor, it was just so cool to, you know, be able to relate to it on so many levels, and just in the kind of, I guess, within the subject of creating something, and all of the corruption that comes with success, and the inevitable demons that you kind of like go into battle with.
There's one word you don't use. Halston. Except to drop snarky little hints that Halston perfume was all your idea.
But she never
I have
said
never
that.
in my life never said that.
Where's the thank you, Elsa? I got you that job at Tiffany's. I'm just waiting for a thank you.
No, you don't get to make this about you.
You're creative because I pay you. If you're an artist, it's on my dime. And I want a little acknowledgement in print. Thank you very much. I like very much the discussion of the creative being and the financial side of things and how they come together. And it's so similar in our business, in our work, that in Halston's, I think he was dealing with people he trusted and money people, and there was the constant battle against his creative perfectionism. And then these people just saying, we want more, do this line of luggage, do this shoes, do these carpets, do these airline seats. Like, he designed everything and anything, and nobody had done that yet. Yeah. He was the first person to do that. But in a way, it sort of overwhelmed him because he was so passionate about it that he wouldn't allow someone else to design a piece of anything with his name on it. He had to do it, a buttonhole or a collar or whatever it be. He had to make the decisions, he couldn't stand for someone else to do that. And in the end, he just couldn't, I think probably couldn't keep up.
Did you have a lot of opportunity to study him sort of physically? And because you're doing this incredible voice that I'm assuming is inspired by the real person.
There's lots of great footage of him. I mean, he was sort of, by the end, he liked to capture everything. He was sort of live streaming his life towards the end before there was Instagram. He had a camera crew in his workroom in Olympic Tower all the time. He loved to be on display, I think. So there's a lot of footage of him, and the voice is sort of, I worked with Liz Hemmelstein, who's a great dialect coach. I've always worked with her on American accents. And so we just wanted to try and make it grow so that it gets, because it did in his life, get sort of grander and grander, So by the end, in episode 5 is more grand than it is in episode 1, But there's lots of him to watch. That's the nice thing about it, is I was able to watch him and totally fall for him. I was always looking for pieces of, because there's lots of interviews with him, but he's always on, There's a very presented, presented sort of on Halston. And I found some great footage of him backstage at fashion shows where you see him in his world, backstage and just doing little alterations on the girls before they go out. And he's sort of naughty, and there's a great one. He's in Detroit, and there was a fashion museum opened in Detroit, and he presented some of his dresses to this new museum. So he's backstage, he's got a drink in his hand and a cigarette, but he's really having a good time. And the guy, there's obviously some cute guy filming him because he's so flirty with the guy behind the camera. And I love seeing that, and I love seeing with his girls. He was just so fun, He really enjoyed their company. He liked doing what he was doing, and so there was a very serious side to him in front of the camera. But I was always trying to find that backstage naughty version of him,
It's a total home run.
Oh, great!
And it humanizes him so much in so many different ways in the way that you play it, even in just kind of like, I don't know, a physical sort of effortlessness,
I'm flattered, and it's great. It was amazing actors to work with, good writing, a great director, amazing sets and costumes. Like, to recreate that time in New York and that time in America, to span those 20 years, the height of Studio 54, and to tell that story, and then the tragedy of the AIDS coming in and everyone losing their loved ones in that time. I don't know. I think it was a beautiful opportunity to tell that story too.
You've got drug addiction, you've got fashion, you've got past trauma, you've got it's pretty delicious.
There's a lot going on. There is a lot going on.
False alarm. Ahsoka Tano! Bo-Katan sent me.
Are you doing a third season? Have you shot a third season, or are you doing it now?
We haven't shot a third season. So confidentially,
Are you allowed?
No, maybe I shouldn't.
Oh no, maybe. It's no.
So anyway, let me tell you what's going on.
No, I know better than anyone.
Say it.
For years, I've had to not tell people about the
There's
Star Wars. We're so secretive.
So they are. Yeah, we're going to be doing a season 3.
That's great. It's so loved. I tell you what it's done is it's sort of for me because I'm about to start. I'm started doing this Kenobi series, and it's similar in the technology, what have you. But it pulled me back into the Star Wars world, the Mandalorian series, in a way I didn't expect. I had my experience doing it in the 90s, and it sort of blew me away how much I loved it.
It was sort of the first thing that I noticed when I started meeting with Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni was that they were finding a way to totally realize their love of Star Wars, all of our love for Star Wars, for all of the movies we had seen up to that point, and so creatively to step into something, it felt, I don't know, it just felt so safe. It was so clear to me that they knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
Starting with their heart being so in the right place, and doing it, with a lot of love.
Yeah.
And then of course, like, these technical achievements with all of the most talented people, all of the best, like, design teams that you can possibly imagine, like pre and post and everything. But starting from, like, the kernel of love of Star Wars.
What was your relationship with Star Wars before?
Well, I was born in 1975, and my parents immigrated to the U.S. from Chile when I was a baby, and so we were, by the time Star Wars came out, it was we were absorbing a lot of cinema. My father, who's a doctor but loves going to the movies, he would be taking us all the time. I don't know, kind of like dominated my childhood experience. It's the Star Wars and the Indiana Jones and E.T. And, all the Spielberg, George Lucas stuff. When I met with them and stepped into, like, a writer's room that was wall-to-wall story illustrations of the first season, it was really surreal to see such sort of, like, familiar imagery kind of realize that they're sort of, like, pulled right out of your imagination. It's kind of the thing that they're doing, is they sort of know the impact that it had on all of us, and they're finding a way to, or new ways to kind of really speak to that and visually, create the things that we sort of see when we close our eyes and think about it, which is kind of amazing.
Error. Facial scan incomplete. 10 seconds to system shutdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Facial scan complete.
It's a galaxy far, far away. It's a universe of possibility, really. We've got they've got the original movies, the sort of linear nature of those, but also I just love that they and you took it into this different direction, slightly different tone, but in the same world.
It's like all the old and all the new. Yeah.
Some old friends and some new friends, and of course, how did you keep the Baby Yodas? It's not called Baby Yoda, Grogu. How did you keep it? How was that kept secret?
Very good.
Thank you. How was it kept secret? Because that didn't get released.
That's the first secret that it may literally be the very first secret that I've ever kept.
Yeah. That was a big one.
Don't share anything personal with me. No, you can always trust me. But, I guess there's so much seriousness around, leaked information, and I find it all just a bit, too much. And so I tell my family everything, and I didn't with Grogu. I didn't even know what his name was going to be until the second season, but I could just tell, you know, that it was going to have such an impact. And I think that sincerely, the idea that it could work as well as they hoped it would, and that I imagined it could when I saw the image of this thing and started reading the scripts and everything. I think I didn't want that to I didn't want to compromise that in any way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was easy to not talk about it because it was like, nah, you know.
I find an interview.
I want this to work.
To save it. I find in interviews it's how devious people are about trying to drag things out of you. You know,
Oh, it's incredible.
Unbelievable, like how clever people are. You suddenly find yourself going down an alley. You're like, oh, wait a minute. Was he Grogu on set? Was it a puppet? Was it like a?
Yeah, there's this incredible puppet with, like, you know, fuzzy hair on the ears, and with the it moves remotely.
Yeah,
there are these incredible puppets, and one can be done remotely that is like more conducive to wider shots, and then there's one that's very, very plugged in, and, you know, its eyeballs are moving around, its eyebrows are moving, it's, you know, all of the sort of like muscular details of its face and ears and everything. And these guys are so talented, and that they get the puppet to sort of act with you in the scene.
Yeah.
I remember doing this one moment, and they didn't keep it, but the puppet was warming itself near the fire, or curious about some kind of fire, you know, coming out of a jet, and I said, don't get too close. And then, you know, and whoever's doing the remote literally had, you know, the puppet like look at me and back up and like be like, oh, okay, you know. And it's like kind of unbelievable. He's a really good scene partner.
All right, pal. It's time to go.
I was lucky to do my scenes with Yoda, with the Yoda puppet, and it was extraordinary because I acted with him. You know, like you say, you were acting with Yoda. I couldn't believe I was acting with Yoda, and then at the end of because there's so many people operating him, and the stage is lifted up, I guess, so they're underneath the floor, and we were like literally walking next to each other, and I don't know, he's like alive. And then every time George called cut, he would die, Yoda, because everyone just stops operating him, so he just goes like that, and it was sort of disturbing every time that the end of the scene would come along. And then they replaced him with for our second film and our third film with the digital version of him. And I never felt like it was it's not as endearing, it's not nearly as, and also we know Yoda as a puppet, you know, we know him from the original 3 movies as a puppet. So when it was suddenly computer generated, it didn't feel like Yoda to me anymore, you know? It's interesting that they went back to using an actual puppet with your series, because they...
Yeah, it's interesting, and there's something that's so kind of like, the way that it worked on so many levels, in the way that we had to end the second season with this, you know, this sort of tearful goodbye.
Yeah.
And to not have had the puppet for that, and also the knowledge of its reception.
Yeah. By
from the world, and how everyone felt about, you know, this its creation, its relationship to the history of Star Wars, and whatever it does, like, provoke in everybody. It was one of the more strange kind of acting experiences that I've ever had, in a way, if that makes any sense.
It does totally make sense. I don't think I'd be giving away a secret. Maybe I did 2. I've done.
Be careful.
I know. Be so careful. Well, it's all right. There's no secret to when this series is being set, but I had to walk past two stormtroopers. I realized I've never acted with a stormtrooper because I did all the mine were clones, you know. It was the clone army.
Yeah.
So I'd never seen a stormtrooper. So when I was walking past in this scene, I turned around and I was like 6 years old again. Like,
doesn't it do something to you? Doesn't it complete
insane? Like I was like feeling like I was 6 again or something because I was so close to one. I got a fright, you know, so crazy. And then I had to ask someone, were there stormtroopers in my films? Because I don't think I've seen a stormtrooper for real before. And they were like, no, they weren't stormtroopers, they were clones. And Jawas, I had another scene of little Jawa.
I'm gonna force you back into Halston real quick because I think that there's an interesting relationship from one of the very, very first times I ever saw you, which was in Train Spotting, which was like this really sort of brutal depiction of addiction, and then literally finishing the fourth episode, because he starts in the first episode with Joel Schumacher and kind of calling out how dangerous or how intolerant he would be to work with somebody who was falling into dangerous drug use, and then he succumbs to it. Is it exhausting to sort of research addiction or to embody it? How different did it feel then versus now?
No, I'm sort of interested in it in a way that when I was doing Train Spotting, I worked with some really extraordinary guys who, I don't know why it was maybe just a guys club, but there's a club in Glasgow called the Carlton Athletic Club, and it's a recovery group. And I suppose it's like NA or A or something, but they have meetings, they help each other with support, and they play they play soccer, they have soccer teams, you know.
Yeah.
We worked with those guys, and we had like Eamon was his name, he was our drug advisor. So during the rehearsal period, he lined us all up at this table, and we were all given all the things we would need to cook up a shot of heroin, like a little cigarette lighter and a spoon and some matches and bicarb of soda and some pretend heroin, and he did it like he demonstrated how you would do it. And then he would walk up and down the line as we were all trying to do it, and he'd like, no, more bicarb, and that's not enough heroin, and you'd soak it through. He was giving us like it was so funny.
A tutorial on how to shoot up.
I've looked back on it, like this guy was in recovery. How did that feel to him? To be doing that, but there was a great humor about it all, I suppose, and. I didn't realize I would end up, with addiction problems myself then, and became sober in 2000. And so now when I'm looking at characters who are addicts, I look at it through a different lens, of understanding it more. And I am fascinated by it because it's an everyday part of my life is being sober, but at the same time, it's quite an important part because it's given me such joy and happiness and peace in a way that I didn't have before I was sober. So I like to look at it. It's interesting to go back. It's interesting to do all those lines of coke and all those cigarettes and shots and that Halston was doing. And just being glad that they weren't real. Just being happy about that, but understanding it. But it gives you an understanding, of course. I understand about addiction, and I could imagine Halston. I don't know. I'm going to be honest. I don't know how honest the portrayal of his relationship with Schumacher is. In that, I don't think that he was.
You don't think that he was ever kind of like, no, naughty.
No.
I'm not going to put up with this kind of behavior, and then somehow...
I don't think so. I think they had a beautiful relationship. It's a little petulant, the relationship in our series. I think they had a really beautiful relationship. And Joel Schumacher passed away during the lockdown, but while we were in the middle of shooting the series. And I was so sad because I knew Joel back in the day. I auditioned for him a couple of times, and I visited his set when he was doing Batman here once. I don't know, I was on set doing ER, and he was there, and he showed me around. He was so lovely, and I worried that we weren't sort of servicing their relationship because in the documentary of Halston, Joel Schumacher speaks so beautifully about Halston that I can't really believe. I think Halston would have been tough on him if he wasn't being creative enough, if he wasn't doing the work, but you know,
Well, there's love in the. I mean, it's minimal, but there's love in the relationship.
Yes.
That's totally clear. I don't mean to say that he's
Yes.
intolerant of like his behavior by any
No.
means. I think he's more sort of like instantly paternal towards
Right.
the character, and that's very, very
which might
evident.
have been the case. That might have been the case. I don't know.
Yeah.
He just seemed so, from what I can see, he just seemed so inclusive of everybody, Halston.
Yeah.
Sexuality, race. He was just so open to everybody all the time. I think that was one of the beautiful things about him, you know.
Halston, I'm getting married.
To whom?
To Jack. Who do you think?
Oh, of course, sweetheart. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So you're not moving in?
Honey, what is wrong?
Oh, I just got scared. You're going to get married and I'm never going to see you again. It's just like he didn't have any boundaries or something, I think. He just loved people, beauty and in whatever shape or form that took, you know?
It was so cool to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you. Maybe I'll see you down the road, maybe.
Yeah, I hope
One of these
so.
days, yeah.
And yeah, have a blast on that set, man.
I will.
Maybe we will bump into each other.
Come visit or something.